Today we talk about Logopolis after this. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and Logopolis is the last Tom Baker adventure, and it was done as the first year of the producership of John Nathan Turner. Now, in interviews, Tom Baker said that he and John Nathan Turner actually got along pretty well. He thought that he was an interesting fellow and nice enough, but they severely differed on their creative ideas. John Nathan Turner was wanting to bring things into the current times, which in 1980 would be considered very retro by now. In fact, some of the older Tom Baker adventures appear to be less timely than the ones that were made during 1980. And in fact, the stuff even with Peter Davison and especially Colin Baker did not really ring quite as well as some of the older Tom Baker stuff did. However, the show Logopolis was a great regeneration episode because that was what it was talking about from the very beginning, from the very first of the four-part series. They're talking about entropy. Now, this is one of the things John Nathan Turner liked to do, to put scientific elements into the science fiction. Doctor Who has always been pretty much fantasy. There wasn't really a whole lot of technology involved in the TARDIS. It just got you where you wanted to go. The sonic screwdriver would do pretty much whatever the script told it to do, and that continues into the current era. But John Nathan Turner wanted to make it more Star Trek-like, I'm certain, and that brought in some of the worst ideas that Star Trek had. Now, let's move on to the story itself. It starts with the idea of entropy. They're in the cloister room of the TARDIS, where you're starting to see pieces of it break off. And the Doctor is telling Adric that perhaps what needs to be done is that the TARDIS needs to be taken to Logopolis. And Logopolis is a place that actually makes things happen, makes matter create through the use of the active chanting of mathematical equations and essentially computer code. And so computer code was used in this episode in order to say how Logopolis works. Now, one of the odd things that they found when they got there was that they had a setup that was similar to something on Earth, and it was some confusion as to why they would have that when they really didn't use computers or deep space antennas or anything like they had there. And it even interested the Master, who, as we know, after the Keeper of Traken, is now back into his full glory and is interested in what's going on here and how he might manipulate it. Now, let's back up a little bit. One of the things about this episode is that in order to get the proper dimensional figures to the Logopolitans, as they called them, they have to go and find an actual police box in order to measure it. Now, the Doctor's TARDIS is modeled after a police box, but the design is something that actually did exist in Britain, especially in the 60s. It started actually in the early 20s, is my understanding, this particular design of police box. And what was the kickoff to the story, in fact, was that one of the show's staff happened to drive by in the northern part of the country an actual existing police box. By 1980, they were pretty rare. And so they actually went out and filmed near this actual police box and then put their own TARDIS next to it. And the idea was by measuring the actual police box, they would be able to fix some of the problems the TARDIS had, including its chameleon circuit, which allowed it to blend in with its surroundings, which it had quit doing in 1963. Okay. So with all of this, the Master's played, may I say, masterfully, and the Doctor himself actually puts in a pretty good performance through most of this, although you can tell he doesn't really like sharing the screen with Anthony Ainsley. He was, in fact, complimentary of him in later interviews that he really did play evil well. And two-dimensional evil, like they were working at that time, is not an easy thing to play. It can be kind of fun. And apparently Anthony Ainsley had a great deal of fun doing the show. His cackle, the way he moved, it was very fun. Let's just say that. And so the entire episode builds on this idea of entropy, on this idea that you can't go back. Logopolis is pretty much destroyed, but in order to keep the rest of the universe from disappearing, the Doctor has to save it, but he can't do it by himself and has to even team up with the Master, and shouts at his companions who object to this by saying, I've never chosen my companions. This isn't quite true, but close enough. Certainly the current group of companions were all there either by accident, by stowing away, or by some other means. So the Doctor has a point that sometimes partnering with the Master is possible and necessary, and the Master is actually a useful tool up to the point where they get it all fixed and then realizes he can use it for his own, tries to get rid of the Doctor in order to be able to continue his domination of the world and everything else. And the Doctor manages to stop him, but then takes a fall from a tall tower. The effects are done pretty well with this, and we have also an introduction of a mystery character called the Watcher. He's always in the distance observing what's going on, and it's never really fleshed out exactly why he's there or what his purpose is, other than at the very end resolving it to say, well, he's the Doctor in the near future wrapped up in bandages. I never really got it, but that was how they were able to regenerate this Doctor in a unique way. Nobody else has ever had it quite this way. In the earlier episodes, they just kind of fade from one face to the other. This, he actually transforms. And later on, of course, they do various different kinds of effects in order to show this regeneration. But it's well done, and it keeps you watching. It's full of cliffhangers, of course, but that's what makes it interesting. And if you only had to watch one Tom Baker thing in the John Nathan Turner era, this would be it. This one, they introduce, they've already had Nyssa, but they bring her back in through means which don't make any sense. They had Adric, but they also brought in Tegan. Tegan Javanka, she was a airline flight attendant trainee who was about to go on her first flight before she finds herself lost with the Doctor, and creates kind of something that Donna Noble would be like later, basically saying, what's going on here? What are you doing? I'm not being told what to do, kind of thing. And it was not really as good a chemistry with this Doctor as it was later with Peter Davison, who always took her with a sigh of resignation anytime that she confronted him. But that's for a different story, a different video. Hope you enjoyed this. I hope you will enjoy this. And if you would like to subscribe to this channel, we hope that you will, because we review not only retro reviews of Doctor Who and of Star Trek, the original series. We're going to be moving into the new Star Trek Strange New Worlds that will be premiering in about a month, and we'll also probably look into some retro reviews of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. I don't think that we've seen a lot of those shows reviewed around the place, so we're going to take a stab at it ourselves, and you never know what else might pop up around here that we may find interesting. We'll also keep you up to date on the news of Doctor Who as it's getting ready to come out in the holiday period between November and the end of the year. So, thank you for watching us. Don't go far.